All right, better late than never. The day after the national championship, there was no point in going live yesterday. We would have ran while the championship was going, and we would have talked your head off the whole game, and nobody wants that. But we had to wait, come together today, give our national championship reaction, and we have a lot to talk about in between everything with recruiting, with the transfer portal, just a loaded show. I'm joined as always by Jay. Jance here. Guys, let the people know where they can find all your great content.
Yeah, you can find me, Jay, Unfair Sports. I got a toothbrush in the back. I'm always here, as well as whatever podcast I downloaded and listened to. You can also follow me on the X-Bird at Unfair Sports. Appreciate it as usual, Ty.
All right, and you guys can find me, Jant Sports, on YouTube and Jant716 on Twitter, especially if you want to try to get in contact or you just want to shoot a quick little DM, find me over there.
My man, glad you came this evening, Jance. Always a treat. This used to be a mainstay, and now we get you when we can because you are a busy man. But, ladies and gentlemen, national championship last night. And listen, let's talk about it because I don't think that it's overtly surprising. I think everybody knew that if Washington couldn't derail Michigan's rushing attack, it was going to be a long day. But the only thing Washington had, in my opinion, made it so interesting to talk about this game was the ability to spread Michigan out. For whatever reason, Alabama didn't even attempt to do so, but we saw Washington do it and do it quite successfully. Even though they weren't able to generate consistent downfield passing with some missed opportunities, they were able to generate offense by getting Michigan in space and taking advantage of some of those matchups. But it just wasn't enough. They couldn't stop the run, and ultimately, Michigan's physicality won. Jay, you predicted a Michigan victory in this, so I'm going to start with you. Talk to me. What stood out for you? What surprised you? Everything in between.
So the thing that, first off, yes, I picked Michigan to win this because just the way that the destiny was going was that they're going to win this title and they were going to vacate all their wins. So, you've heard me say this before. I'm going to keep repeating it. That's exactly what I saw coming into this game. It's like, okay, they're going to win this. Actually, I saw this in November by the way that they've been playing. They probably are the most physical team in college football right now. Like, the way this team plays, they are pure trench, and they are one of those teams that just, you don't like playing them. It's annoying. They wear you out. They exhaust you. And once halftime hits, you're sitting there just like, gosh, man, these dudes are just exhausting. They're standing there stretching like, all right, woo, that was a good warm-up. Let's get started. Like, wait, what? We've been playing for like 24 minutes. Y'all, like we had 30 minutes of football here, and y'all are just now warming up. They play with so much intensity and just physical. They beat up Washington in that game. Like, they ran for what, 300 yards in this game?
I mean, at least.
They were just beating up Washington. They were just pounding them in the trenches. And then on the other side of it, on the defensive side, which was even more impressive to me, is we talk about how cupcake-ish their schedule was going through the Big Ten, and quite frankly, it was. Besides playing, Ohio State and Penn State, I mean, who did they really play that, you cared about? Well, they walked into this game, and their defense looked like the top defense. They were all... The way that they were blitzing Bama made me say, "Oh, okay, I see why their defense is rated so high." And then they came into this game with the same thing. They were just beating up on Washington's line, the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. They basically made it to where Michael Penix had to toss a whole bunch of screen passes and play-action screens to get rid of the ball fast enough. Like, he didn't really have as much time until later in the game to really fling it, but they had hit him so many times that when he got the chance to fling it, it's like they let him fling it because they knew that his ribs wasn't going to let him be able to get a good throw off. So he's like, all right, we'll let you throw it now. We're going to go four-man front. We're going to beat your dudes up. We're going to have Penix panic. And when he throws, he's not going to be able to be as accurate as he normally is because he's doing this the entire game. Every other play. They were so physical in this game, man. That's what sold me in watching some of them play, and then watching them play Penn State, watching them play against Maryland, watching them play against Ohio State. I was like, yep, they're physical. And that's basically how they won it. They won it in the trenches, and it was done. So now we'll wait until the investigation goes through. They'll vacate all these wins. They'll vacate the national championship. Jim Harbaugh will take a job in the NFL, and we'll just, be back to normal. But yeah, that's what I saw out of Michigan, man. It was SEC football is what I saw out of Michigan. It felt like textbook SEC football.
Yeah, it was bully ball, right? We aren't going to throw the ball. We're going to just run it down your throat. And Donovan Edwards, I don't know how he wasn't featured more. That guy is so electric. Every time he touched the ball, it seemed like a big play was destined to happen.
Health.
He had to be.
He was in and out on injuries, if I'm correct. And so this was one of the few games he's gotten to play because, yeah, and he looked great.
Looked fantastic. Jance, I'm going to pass it to you. Same thing. I want you to talk about this game, what stood out to you, but also one of the things that Jay said that I want to hear from you on, and that's going to be a segment we will even talk about, is the coaching carousel, and more specifically about Harbaugh. Do you think he takes an NFL opportunity after this season?
I think Jan stepped away.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate timing, but that's
Right.
what happens when you do this live. You live and you learn. So, Jay,
But no, even
I'm going to pass it back to
that,
you.
As you mentioned, I sense that Harbaugh's most likely going to take. I think he's going to end up in an NFL job. Now, I know that Michigan's trying their hardest to keep him and retain him, and quite frankly, that would be the smartest thing they can do. The question is what does the sanctions and all of this stuff look like coming from Michigan? And that it's funny. I read an article on The Athletic, and I think you'll get a kick out of this, Ty. They, for one, they shot a stray at somebody, and I kind of feel bad that they caught this stray. While at the same time, someone mentioned to me, "Nah, they deserve every stray that they get." But it was Brett McMurphy wrote, and no, Bruce Feldman wrote it, and they were talking about how an Alabama official was talking about Michigan playing against them and whatnot, and they basically said, "Look, everybody still signs in some way, shape, or form. Everybody's cheating, right? I mean, for the most part, if you're a top team, you're doing some stuff, unless you're deciding to go squeaky clean like a team like Vanderbilt, and then you end up what Vanderbilt is. So you got a choice. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, or you're Vanderbilt." And I was like, dang. Just all up in Nashville's chest, just like, y'all are just, trash. Like that hurt. But at the same time, it makes sense, right? So if and they said also that even with everything that went down with Kansas, and we know that Kansas basketball is infamous for all the cheating that they do, nothing happened to them. Yeah, ain't nothing happened to Michigan. And that was it. I was like, oh, good point. And this is an Alabama official. They just kind of like just laying it out. Look, it is what it is. So yeah, I think that he comes back. I know that he's going to flirt with the NFL. Michigan's going to try their hardest to keep him, which will be smart on their part because he would be totally worth having come back and try to keep this going.
Chance, I'm going to pass it to you, man. We just started talking about Harbaugh to the NFL, but I want to hear from you on that. I also want to hear your take on the national championship game as a whole.
Uh-oh, you're on mute, buddy. It's because you stepped away.
See, they try to silence me. They
want to keep you down, man.
They try to silence me. No, but I think he goes off to the NFL. I actually think he's going to go to the Washington Commanders. I think it makes sense. His parents stay in Maryland, near that area, and then John Harbaugh's right there as well. So I think that could be a perfect choice. He has a lot of cap space. He has something. He does have a quarterback he can work with, but he can also draft, so he has options there. I think they're about to change a little bit of their leadership because I think they just fired their general manager. So we'll kind of see, but I wouldn't be surprised if he, goes around, test the market. He's not going to get paid a lot of money in the NFL. I mean, or, we should say he's going to get paid a lot, but it's going to be nowhere near close to what Michigan can pay him. But I just don't think he wants to do it the NCAA, right? The fact that they want his head. They do not like Jim Harbaugh, right? The fact that he's still at literally as soon as the season's over, not only is he still fighting some of the violations or some of the allegations that's going on right now, he still is fighting like kind of like NIL type stuff. I know he has like a recruiting violation. He still is fighting that he still has to face because he had a student, he had a student athlete from high school kind of come over with a visit that wasn't even permitted. So he still is going against a bunch of stuff that the NCAA is trying to really kind of put on him. And it's kind of like, why would you want to kind of deal all that? Especially the fact that Michigan kind of they had to restructure his contract because They paid him a lot of money. They restructured it because I think that they kind of didn't want to believe in him. There was a lot of stuff that was going on between him, Michigan, and the NCAA. And let's be honest, I think the reason why he came to Michigan in the first place was to get an NFL job. I don't think anybody was offering him because of his reputation with the San Francisco 49ers, and nobody offered him a job. And you're talking about a guy that went to 3 consecutive NFC Conference Championship games, but because he had an 8-8 stint and because he had some beef with some players in the locker room, nobody offered him a job. So he has kind of been the bad man on campus pretty much his entire career. Even when he was at Stanford, even when he was everywhere, like literally when he was at Stanford, San Diego, he's always kind of been known as the bad man on campus for some reason, like that one high school jock that is talented, always a winner, but for some reason is always like in trouble. That's Jim Harbaugh. So I think he does go to the NFL for that extent. Now, if he stays here, it'll be great. He'll be offered, he'll probably like a $120 million contract extension. And you know, that would be awesome, right? Especially because he's figured out the blueprint to beating Ohio State. He has kind of figured out the transfer portal, and this is a guy that doesn't even get top 10 recruiting classes. Like the best recruiting class I think he's ever had was like a 12th or 13th, but those kids stay for 4 to 5 years. He gets kids from the portal. He knows how to develop a lot of players like a Mason Graham, a Moore, that are true sophomores. And Michigan has a lot of young players. They got a lot of young dudes coming back next year as well. So it's just been a testament of development. It's been a testament of great coaching. The Harbaugh brothers, man, not only are they the best brother duo or best coach brother duo to ever do it, like these guys are a staple because like coaches that maybe John Harbaugh doesn't really want, or maybe he does want, he'll just give to Jim. Like Jesse Minter was a gift right from John Harbaugh. And literally the exact defense that Michigan ran the entirety of the season was the Ravens defense that they're currently running right now. It is an NFL style defense from the number 1 defense in the National Football League. So it's just crazy to see how everything's kind of going. A lot of that Michigan staff came from the Baltimore Ravens. Even when he was in San Francisco, like he would give some of the staff to John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh would give some of his staff to Jim Harbaugh. It was like a fair trade. Like these guys have like some sort of monopoly going on when it comes to that coaching tree. But I think he kind of goes off there. As far as the national championship, not surprised. Washington has, as great as Washington is, Washington has had their blunders. There's a reason why they had 8 close games during the regular season. There's a reason why they only put up 15 points and no touchdowns against the one-win Arizona State team. They're a really, really good football team, but they're more finesse. You're going against a completely different animal in Michigan that is basically a power base. Runs a lot of pin and pull with their offensive line, dominates the line of scrimmage. They literally run a 3 or 4 deep rotation. Their best defensive tackle might have not even been Mason Graham. Their best defensive tackle, and it was their backup defensive tackle, who was more of a rotational piece. Like that they're deep, loaded, and Washington's offensive line was just simply not ready for it. Now give credit is due. They did put up 38 points against Texas, but we knew that Texas secondary was suspect, and we knew that edge rushing wise, they were solid, but they weren't elite. Like they didn't even really have an elite rotation. It was really just Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy that was the elite players coming in that defensive front. So nothing surprised me. The blowout did not surprise me. I think what did kind of surprise me was 209 yards in the freaking first half. That surprised me a lot. But at the same time, though, Washington's defense had the 90th ranked rushing defense in the country. So, Washington's weakness from both sides of the ball is going against Michigan's strength. And the one thing that we talked about Michigan for the entirety of the year is that they're the only team in the college football playoff that is consistent. They know exactly who they are. They're not going to shy away from it. J.J. McCarthy is not going to throw for 300 yards. J.J. McCarthy is going to be the ultimate game manager. He's going and that's what you saw today: 10 for 18, 140 yards. Made crucial plays when needed to be made, but for the most part, Michigan played exactly who they played like. Alabama had their inconsistencies, trying to figure out their identity. Washington had their inconsistencies, trying to figure out their identity. Florida State, same situation. Texas, same situation, dealing with their struggles through the season. Michigan was the only team that was consistent day in and day out. It might have not been pretty. Again, we can criticize the sign stealing all we want, but at the end of the day, Michigan did exactly what they were supposed to do, and that's the reason why they're the national champs.
100%. I want to get to this right here. Sooner Legends, thank you for the $2. He says, great coverage, guys. Solid points made. But I also wanted to get to your comment right back here where he asked, was Michigan playing with their food earlier in the game, or did Washington make that big of an adjustment after they were gashed for the 2 long touchdown runs? I don't think Michigan was necessarily playing with their food.
That's how they play.
That's how they play. And
Mm-hmm.
I talked about this in the preview video, and even after the Alabama-Michigan game. If you go back and watch that Alabama-Michigan game, Michigan did Michigan the entirety of that game, right? It was like a boxer with a mean jab, and they're just going to keep walking you down and jabbing you until the point where you're not going to be able to get anything off on them because they are just going to keep jabbing until they're going to sit you down with that jab after a while. That's what I like in Michigan too. And I think that we saw that, right? Where I think Washington adjusted and they did so semi-well for about 5-10 minutes. And then Michigan just kept hitting them with the jab until they sat them down again. And then it was the doors off from there. Jay, I want to pass it to you. What do you think about that?
I don't think that Michigan's playing with their food either. I think Michigan, the big thing that they were doing in that game is that a combination of Michigan and Washington just playing their own games, right? And Michigan isn't perfect. They have struggles. They have struggles at moments of moving the ball, but their big thing is they just run that clock, man. Like it's just when you watch them play, it's just like I said, it's a grind nonstop. And when you looked at it, I mean, time of possessions, 4 minutes on one possession, and they scored quickly at like a minute, some change because of a touchdown. But in a lot of their possessions, 3 and 4 minutes, man, they kept just the ball and they were running and just taking their time. I love how Saban mentioned something that came full circle for all of us of how Michigan goes in the huddle and they take their time. That ain't something we're used to, right? And Saban kind of basically said, yeah, this is not normal. This is something different. Even though that was basically Saban to start his career,
right
at Bama. It was going into the huddle, taking your time, running that clock. And it's
He's
just
like, wait a minute, that's me. That's
right,
me from 2009.
It's like, wait a minute, what the hell? He's using stuff with you. And that's the funny part about that is, and this is why I've always had so much respect and even more renewed respect for Saban is he adjusted to the times. So he got out of that as the game shifted and it was starting to become a problem for him. So he's like, nah, let's learn how to do some of this. Hurry up, look on the sideline, get your play, blah, blah, blah. He was adjusting to the day. Jim Harbaugh said, nah, I'm just going to go ahead and do what I said I'm going to do. And I want you to stop me. If you can stop me, we're good. There's nothing I can do about that. But if you can't stop me, I'm going to keep doing this. And he just kept doing it. It's like it was, as mentioned before, I think both of you said this, Michigan said, this is what we're going to do. And they told everybody to stop us from doing it. And that's where the problem came in. It was very hard to stop them. You can't stop them. This year was their year. This was the year for them to impose their will, and they did it. Beyond impressed. So I don't think it was playing with your food. It was more so Michigan was figuring things out. And then, like I said, they started beating up Penix to the point of they didn't need to have to blitz as much. They could go with a 4-man front, and his body was hurting so much. He was throwing bad passes anyway at that point. You couldn't do anything about it. Every pass, you saw him doing this. I'm going to keep reminding y'all. Go watch it. Go back and rewatch. You kept seeing him do this on some of them passes because he was stinging. Them ribs were sore.
You know what it reminded me of? Do y'all remember the Bama-Michigan State playoff game where Bama was killing Cook, but they didn't blitz? Bama didn't blitz nearly the whole game. They sent a 4-man to 3-man front and were destroying him. It kind of was
Connor
making me think of that. Yeah,
Connor got beat up. Go look back at Washington when they played against Washington in the playoffs. Washington's first year in there. Literally, there was barely any blitzing. They were just beating with a 4-man front, and they was just tearing up
Jake
Browning. Jake Browning. Yeah, tearing up Jake Browning the entire game. So yeah, Michigan was able to do it this year, which is just crazy.
I want to hit this comment, and then Jance, I want to pass it to you because I have a bit of an analogy that I'd like you to run away with once I give it. But first, Texas Homer in here, guys. If you're not subscribed to Homer, do me a favor, do so. I think he has some of the highest quality content on the platform, not sports YouTube, on the platform YouTube. That's how good it is. Absolutely worth your time. He says Michigan also did what we didn't. They couldn't sack Penix outright often, but they'd make sure to put hands on him after he threw. It really changed Penix's whole demeanor. I talked about that in the preview, and I tweeted about that during the game, man, that Washington proved against Texas that it's not just enough to get pressure on Penix. You got to convert by either hitting him or sacking him. And this is where my analogy comes in, Jance, and I want to pass it to you because you're a boxing fan, if I'm not mistaken, right? We've talked about some boxing. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Deontay Wilder, what did he do for the entire? He leans on Tyson Fury.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Tyson Fury leans
Tyson
on
leans
Deontay
on
Wilder.
Deontay for literally,
the whole fight
for the first whole fight until we tried it with Francis. But we'll go on that another bit.
And then after a while, Deontay Wilder didn't like that anymore. And when Tyson started unleashing, he didn't have the strength to keep going.
Nope.
Had a leg for it.
Michigan, correct or incorrect? Do you think that's fair?
No, that's correct. That is completely correct, man. That is completely correct. Lean on him for all 12 rounds. Deontay Wilder, literally, again, his power shots, most of his power shots came in the first 5 rounds, and then after that, he was exhausted. He was done.
Yeah, it makes me think of Clemson when
That's
Clemson in their 2 titles. Same thing. Yep. That's what Clemson would do. I remember when Clemson Oklahoma played in the playoffs, and OU was up, of course, at the half, and it looked like it was kind of promising. But when that second half hit, like Wayne Gallman, the running back, he had said it after the game. He was talking about, he was like, yeah, I came to coaches and I told him, I was like, Coach, the hands on their hips, they tired. Give me the ball. And he just ran it down our throat, just nonstop. Because why? They leaned on that line all game, just exhausted them. And it's all about who's the strongest that late in the season and in the best conditioning. It's kind of what it is, man. And Michigan went out there and, like I said, they just like you said, it's perfect analogy. It's like a boxer leaning on another one until late in the match. The one that's got the power, his legs are so beat. Hell, and also, you don't go into a fight wearing like 200 pounds worth of
200-pound armor
just to
his
be theatrical. Just no, it's dumb. But yeah, good point.
Yep. Been saying it the entire season. They're the boa constrictor of college football. They suffocate you to death. They may not kill you immediately like a tiger. Like a tiger would go for the throat and you're dead instantly. They're a boa constrictor, man. They would choke you out to death.
Slowly.
Long and exhausting. Yep. Long and exhausting.
The long knife. They're here for the long knife.
You know, guys, as we kind of round out that, there's a lot of talk on social media and Twitter about the AP poll, the final AP poll that came out, and people were mad about the order of it. Now, I don't know about y'all. I kind of want to get y'all's opinion on this to make sure I'm not crazy. I'm of the mindset, right? And maybe Ricky Bobby really did a number on me, but if you're not first, like, yeah, second is cool, but like you didn't host a national championship trophy. So like, I don't care if you came in second, third, fourth, fifth, it doesn't matter. We didn't win the national championship. So it's all like a consolation prize. And quite frankly, I'm not in it for the moral victory. So is that fair? Or could y'all see where there's some of the outrage for the placement in the AP poll?
I don't, and I don't know why Bama fans are like they're the ones that are speaking the loudest on it. I don't understand. Like we're a program that if we come in second or third place, we get pissed off about it, and all of a sudden we're gonna get mad because we're in fifth. Like really, we didn't win it. We got into the playoffs and we lost. We got to move on. Who cares about where we're ranked in AP poll? I don't care if we're not ranked. We didn't win the championship. This is not our first rodeo. This is not our first rodeo. You do not get a second and third place prize. Our consolation prize was the SC championship.
Boom.
That's our consolation prize.
Yep. And you got that at the house. You can hang that up, and that's totally worth hanging up. It's definitely something worth talking about.
Worth hanging up.
Your conference is huge. It's hard. It's huge. So I thought it was fascinating, though, that Bama was behind Georgia, even though Bama won the conference. I would have expected Bama to be ahead of them. I'm still kind of pissed off at Florida State for not giving us the opportunity to have a 14-0 team and a 15-0 team just to ruin everything in the rankings. I would have loved for them to go undefeated just to throw things off. But I also understood why they didn't. Because, I mean, they did everything they were supposed to do, and they didn't get the spoils at the end. So I wanted 2 undefeated teams just to throw a wrench and everything that's going on. But Bama should have been ahead of Georgia, in my opinion. I agree with fans, but James, you're 100% right. It really doesn't matter. It's the season's over. We're done. You're still finished top 5. So it's not like it really matters. What's going to happen? I mean, we're going into next season now, and everybody's got to figure out who's retooling what on their roster going into it.
And it's like, okay, I understand, because Jay, I do agree with you. I think it only makes sense for Bama to be ahead of Georgia. But the way I look at it, Jance, you hit the nail on the head. You got the SEC championship over Georgia, and Bama went to the college football playoffs. They're one of 4 teams that did. So, like, they didn't win it. So at that point, it's already like, all right, unless you're one of the other 3 teams that were there, you don't really have much to say about this conversation. But that's neither here nor there, right? Georgia, boy, did they beat the hell out of Florida State. That was unfortunate.
That was a varsity versus a JV team.
Yeah,
literally a varsity versus a JV team.
Yeah, and I get it. I get why a lot of those guys didn't play. I get it, but boy,
you could have claimed the national title, and they would have got it. I mean, UCF got theirs because they got their claimed one apparently. So that's what who knows.
That was a tough watch, boys. That was a real tough watch. But let's move forward. We have transfer portal to talk about. We have coaching carousel to talk about. We talked about Harbaugh earlier, asked and floated whether or not we think he could hit the NFL. But let's talk about some tangible stuff. The funniest part was that Kirby beating FSU that bad, but he still felt bad about it. He had to make a point. Yeah, no, he had to make a point about it, but he did. It was almost like putting down your dog, man. If like the dog gets rabies. Y'all remember those old stories? It's like, you got to do it. You feel bad about it. That's kind of the same thing. But let's talk about some coaching carousel stuff, then we'll head into the transfer portal, because Bama has some tangible stuff, right? Bama now has to replace a defensive coordinator, and they got to find a wide receiver coach. So, Jance, I'm going to start with you. Wide receiver coach, who would you like? And for defensive coordinator, am I crazy in thinking just elevate T-Rob? He's already there. Like, just for the love of God, we don't need to lose him.
Yeah. So for receiving coach, I would like to get Kevin Norwood. I think Kevin Norwood, who's kind of been in the coaching realm for a little bit, it's been part of the program. He understands this is a guy that's been a part of 3 national championships. He understands the standard, understands what Nick Saban wants. And I think that, for the most part, I think he's going to be a really, really good, outstanding coach. Now, that's just my personal opinion. I would like to get a guy like Kevin Norwood. I know some people are throwing in Terrell Owens' name because Terrell Owens has, even though he didn't go to Alabama, he does have a lot of affiliation with the program. Like a lot of games, he's on the sidelines with Bama gear on and stuff like that. And he's kind of been interested in coaching. So that would be cool. As far as recruiting-wise, you can't get any better than freaking Terrell Owens. So that would be freaking cool. But yeah, Kevin Norwood would be one of my first options just to see what we can do. And I think that he's, from a development standpoint, I think Kevin Norwood can definitely develop. I think we've seen what former wide receivers, guys that actually played the position at a high level, can do, and how they can develop and recruit, especially nowadays. Like, these players, they're not going to sympathize with the older generation. It's not like how it used to be. Like, nowadays, you got to have younger guys. You got to have younger guys that can sympathize with these young kids, especially we're in a day and age with NIL. So I think Kevin Norwood would be my choice. As far as, T-Rob, you're not crazy about that. I want T-Rob to be my defensive coordinator. He already called plays anyway. Like, he was a big part of calling plays for Alabama in the first place. So I don't understand why people are saying that they want a guy that can elevate this defense to the next status. Now, listen, Kevin still retiring did not surprise me. Why? Because because he was literally at the exact age where Bama's, I think, retirement pension. Yep. This was the season. So we knew that this was probably going to be a one and done type deal. Now, the one thing that I think did not go according to plan, and this is just accordingly, was that Jeremy Pruitt was going to be an analyst. Because if Jeremy Pruitt was the analyst, I think he would have been the next guy easily. And maybe he still can, but I don't know if the NCAA has officially cleared him yet. We'll kind of have to see about that.
He'll get a 1-year suspension no matter what.
Yeah.
So if you hire him, it makes sense to hire him as a position guy that's going to have to be sit a whole year anyway. Mm-hmm. So you get it over with. You should have did this year, to be honest. But yeah.
So That's why I think T-Rob has to be the guy. Again, he's already been super familiar with the defense, but not to mention this dude is a recruiting guru at defensive back. I do not want that dude to go anywhere else and be a position coach or even get a higher position. Caleb, like you look at the guys that we got, the recruiting class we have now getting, I think 6 or 7 defensive backs. That's because of T-Rob. He has been a big, intricate part of this
and
this
Ryan Williams
recruiting cycle, and Ryan Williams, exactly, because guess what? He knows the area better than any. Well, besides Nick Saban, but he knows the area better than a lot of these dudes. He knows this area. This is an ace in the whole recruiter. I would even say better than Pete Golding and Tosh LaPoy as far as just kind of the young guys that we kind of had to elevate. I think he's better than both those guys in my personal opinion as far as recruiting and player. And we all know. Well, maybe not better than LaPoy because LaPoy could develop some guys at the outside linebacking position, but definitely better in my opinion than Pete Golding. So yeah, I would like T-Rob to be the guy. I think it would, if we're talking about the loyalty standpoint, doing right, it would make more sense. And I think the players would love it. Like having a very familiar face that the players already have, that they already love. Everybody loves T-Rob. So it would make most sense for Nick Saban to kind of elevate T-Rob to be a defense coordinator.
I think it's the only one that makes sense. God forbid there have been reports about DJ Durkin and Jance. I will do a live stream of me bashing my head into this table if it's DJ Durkin. I don't want it.
What was Cadillac Williams? Remember that rumor? Cadillac Williams?
That's just a troll Auburn, though. That'd be funny.
That would be funny.
Jake, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm curious to who y'all actually pull out for wide receiver coach. This is a nice pivotal time. I'm wondering if Ryan Day goes to the NFL and brings Hartline with him. It seems like things are kind of being shaken up at Ohio State. It's kind of weird. A lot of people, rolling out that you wouldn't have expected. So I'm curious to kind of what that situation looks like, on top of, I'm trying to think of who else you could really put hands on, but that's probably the more interesting hire for me because it seems like the wide receivers have been a little bit of a revolving door for you all. Like you get some high recruits and then some of the backups end up leaving because they're falling down the rotation. Tommy, you talked about this a few times. Like JoJo Earl was one of those. Like, he was a very promising guy, got hurt, starts falling out the depth chart. Next thing you know, they're out. And I'm wondering who's going to be brought in to be able to keep and retain some of that talent that is good, but that needs to be cultivated, I guess you could say. But y'all got some beats coming in anyway, wide receivers, so it's not like it's that hard. It's not like it's an actual problem. I'm just curious to who's going to be able to, retain some of those players and like I said, really cultivate some stuff internally. Because I know that Saban likes to live more so off of the high school recruiting than in the portal. He likes to use the portal as a Band-Aid, as a bandage for like little things, plug and play occasionals, but really want to focus on the high school guys. But DC, again, I should have hired Pruitt this year. Let him serve his suspension. And then, kind of not really punt on the season, but just bring the dude in and just let it figure it out from there. Hopefully that happens this year because Pruitt comes back, defense goes back to how y'all really want it to be. Seriously.
Yeah, he in July 14th of 2023, he was, I think, issued a 6-year show clause. And
I think the SEC cleared him to be able to.
Did the SEC clear him? Because
I think the SEC cleared him. I don't think the NCAA did, but I think everybody's basically telling the NCAA to go shut up, stuffing them in a locker. So if that's the case,
yeah, that's true.
It doesn't really matter.
Very little respect for the NCAA out in these streets.
Yup. So yeah, I think that you all could get confirmation with the SEC of him being cleared and just go ahead and just have him do his job. Why not?
Now there has been some talk of LSU's wide receiver coach to Bama. That would be interesting. Great wide receiver play over at LSU this year. I floated some names that I think would be interesting. Now they're all I don't think any of them are realistic, but Rashad Samples, who's at Arizona State. He is a young up-and-coming coach that has incredible ties to the DFW area.
No.
What?
No, you can't hire him.
Yeah,
no.
that's yeah. His dad coaches for Duncanville. or he's still the head coach of Duncanville, I believe, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. The Duncanville High School. Samples is a really highly regarded coach, very interesting up and comer. Yeah, that would be an incredible hire. Now, the one that I would really like to get, but there's no way, is if there's any way to swing Brennan Marion, but there's no way you're getting him
no way.
absent offensive coordinator. Like that would
That's
have to be
where-
the only way.
That's what it feels like the biggest problem with when it comes to these searches for in certain situations, like the ones that you really want. Like I've heard the Emmett Jones one flying around, and I'm just like, I totally could see Bama going after Emmett Jones, but they would have to make him an offensive coordinator if he's going to take the job. Like right now, he's an associate head coach, and
Yeah.
he's elevated up. His next place is either offensive coordinator or head coach. Right, he's one of those in the next two because he truly is a leader of men. I think he's one of those guys that could end up being a head coach without actually being a coordinator. But he's already elevated to the highest position, and he's being paid a lot of money. If Bama's going to grab him, they'd have to, of course, give him a raise, and he's going to probably ask for a title. But you got Tommy Rees. Unless y'all plan on getting rid of Rees, I just don't see it. So that's kind of where the problem comes in with Brennan Marion. He's going to want to come in as an offensive coordinator because that's going to give him additional clout in going towards a head coaching job.
And I'd love for him to be the offensive coordinator.
I think, yeah, that go-go offense would be pretty fun. And I wonder how Saban would handle it, though. It just doesn't feel like something Saban would want.
Yeah, because the Mike Locksley situation was, I mean,
right.
that Mike Locksley also was explosive, but he hated it to death.
It's the management of the time, and I just don't see Saban liking it. So thank you, Jance. Locksley is another good example of that. So I don't know. But you're right, Ty. I agree with you. I mean, he would be a fun person having the SEC as you know, doing the OC thing. I don't know. We had quote unquote interviewed him, but I didn't think we actually were truly interested because he played at Tulsa, so you know has Oklahoma ties. But we wanted to go internal anyway and just take the former head coach. It makes life easier for our head coach. But I digress. I'm the ones that I would want y'all to go after. It feels like they're going to want an elevated title more so than anything.
Like I said, neither one of those are realistic. Neither one of those I believe will happen, but both are ones that if they did happen, oh boy.
Samples would be really good though. Because you can make him associate head coach. He's going to get a pay raise.
Well, that one I think you could swing because going from Arizona State to Bama is, you know what I mean? I think that's much more of a
huge.
I think that's a much easier move to try and swing than the other.
You know, like the passing game coordinator role or something underneath Reese will work.
Yeah, that would be wild. Brian over here in need of some help. Brian, I have no way to help you right now, man, but I hope for all the best, my man, because that does not sound fun at all. But, Jay, we got to get into the transfer portal stuff because y'all are absolutely stacking up transfer portal visits. Don't y'all have a 5-star offensive lineman coming in?
Well, Hurt was here this past weekend before dead period. So Zalance Hurd, the 5-star that transferred out of LSU, has 3 years, of course, of eligibility, out of Louisiana. So, he's from the state, and LSU somehow lost a guy in state. And, he was in town this past weekend. I think he was here, flew out. He went to Tennessee, was there for a couple hours, did his visit, flew out in the afternoon, landed in Oklahoma in the evening, and he visited, it sounds like all day Sunday and left Monday. Him and Terrence Ferguson, the former Bama lineman, he was actually in town with him. So you got a double visit of 2 offensive linemen that could be potential for, I think Hurd could honestly be a starter. I think Ferguson would continue to be like a depth rotation guy, similar to there at Bama. But you bring those 2 in, and Beanbo was working, man. He was, and what I've heard is him just showing the NFL draft stuff is what got his attention. It's like, you got some you put some dudes in the league. Anton Harrison went first round last year. Looks like Guyton's going to follow with another first round pick. So you got back-to-back first rounders at the tackle position for a guy that's playing tackle. Conversation. Walter Rouse is going to get drafted probably late day 2, day 3. So, and he, bringing him over from Stanford, getting him flipped from Nebraska. his track record is really showing even more over the last couple of years, especially with the new regime. Players are starting to really pay attention. And I think that that's kind of gotten Hurd's attention, even though, we know that as a five-stars are going to five-star. They're going to want that bag. I think Oklahoma's willing to play in the sandbox with him because specifically you bring in a guy of his talent and his athleticism. You just got to work on his technique. You can make him a potential first-round pick, get him NFL money. I think he likes that idea. And so Oklahoma's put in their full court press on both, and it would be great to have them both. It'd be great to revamp our line since we're losing 5 players five of them to the draft, 4 of them to the draft, 1 of them transferred out to get closer to home. It appears, and so bringing him in and to help with the line will be huge for what we're trying to do going forward. So, I'm excited.
Brinsky, my man, happy you can join us. We're in here talking about the transfer portal. We were just talking about the coaching carousel, and being that you're a Bama fan, I feel like it's only right that you get to talk about that conversation, talking about the opening at wide receiver coach, talking about the opening at defensive coordinator. Man, my theory is that they need to elevate T-Rob for defensive coordinator. Already on staff. We can't afford to lose him. All right, he's a great recruiter. Jance outlined all the guys he had his hand in terms of recruiting and in terms of being a developer of talent. You look at what he did at South Carolina. You look at what he did at Alabama. I think it's only natural to elevate him. But wide receiver coach, this is where it gets interesting. Homer gives another name that I actually have heard as being a name that they think Bama could try and go after, Jamarcus Shepard from UW. Who would you like to see for Bama wide receiver coach, Brinsky? Oh, you're on mute.
That's Michigan, man.
You hear me?
Yeah. They just don't want to. They just don't want to hear us today, man.
Nope.
The disrespect.
Y'all don't hear me?
No, we can hear you
now.
Oh, okay. I was like, I thought I took it off mute. Oh yeah, man, that was the name that I was saying or was about to say, man, because I believe he'll be an awesome fit. But hopefully we can get him because Washington's not about to be in that position no time soon, let alone probably be another 35 years before I see that again. So come to Alabama, elevate these receivers like Jalen Hale and all these guys coming, especially Ryan, especially how we seen how Aduze been playing.
Yeah.
And clearly he's about to make a lot of money in the NFL, a whole lot of money in the NFL. He's just so smooth with it, man. I just love him as a wide receiver.
But it's not just him. I mean, you watch that whole passing game.
Mm-hmm.
Their entire wide receiving core.
Polk, McMillan, tight ends. They got 2 tight end sets, which are really freaking good tight ends. And just their whole intricacy of their offense is sweet.
Yeah, so I can only imagine what he'll do if he come to Alabama, because we really haven't had those guys like that probably ever since the 2020 national championship game. So to bring him in and the type of guys that we are bringing in with Julian Sand being the quarterback, then more than likely Ryan Williams, man, it'll be hard, man. I hope that we get him.
It's wild because I really liked Wiggins. I think Wiggins was a fantastic recruiter, but the one thing that was wild is of the 13 wide receivers he had recruited since taking over at wide receiver coach for Alabama, 9 of them ended up in the transfer portal. That's just wild to me because it's just, I don't know. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a great recruiter. I just don't know what the disconnect was, and I don't know that it's all on him. I've been incredibly critical of the Bill O'Brien offense, right? And I don't think that did him any favors with those option routes, those comebacks all across the field. That was tragic to watch. Jance, do you have any theories on that?
I can't tell you. I mean, it's just what we see from Bill. Like I said, I think a lot of it does have to do with Bill O'Brien. I think this construction of this absolute just destruction of this offense. This is year 1 under Tommy Rees, and I don't even think that Tommy Rees even pulled off the full intricacy of his offense because he had to figure out the skill set of Jalen Miro, and I feel like we had to kind of cater to what he kind of had to do what he had to deal with compared to what Ty Reese was familiar with. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think Ty Buckner was going to be the starting quarterback of this team if he just would have had a solid spring or summer campaign. I think this offense was tailor-made for Ty Buckner. And then as soon as Jalen Monroe beat him out and Ty Buckner could not take that approach because Ty Simpson apparently was not a part of the equation, we went with Jalen Monroe and we stuck with him. And so now with under year 2 with Ty Reese, it would have been interesting to see what Holloman Wiggins can do. I just feel like Holloman Wiggins had to deal with just the absolute obliteration from what we went with Lane Kiffin and following that path all the way from Brian Dable to Mike Locksley to Steve Sarkisian. And then all of a sudden you have Bill O'Brien, who pretty much tore it all down, instituted his own thing, tried to cater an offense to Bryce Young and literally run an NFL style of offense, which is, and not just any, because like I said, there's a lot of NFL pro style offenses, but an offense which maybe 90, maybe 95%, maybe less than that of college quarterbacks can run. Like it was an offense that was centered around Bryce Young, and if he wasn't there, then nobody else was going to run that offense to its proficiency. And even Bryce Young struggled because these receivers couldn't get into rhythm. And maybe that's a Holloman Wiggins issue. Maybe for what we've seen for the last couple of years, that these receivers couldn't get it going. Maybe that could be. But from what I've seen this year, I've seen receivers that were more wide open than I've seen compared to last year. I've seen receivers that felt more comfortable. I saw receivers that felt a lot more confident, more patient, especially dealing with Jalen Monroe and bought in more into the process compared to last year. So, Holloman Wiggins, it's interesting, man, because like I said, the dude is an elite recruiter at the receiving position, but it's crazy that none of them were able to translate into first round picks. Besides, I think Mechie was a second round pick, so none of them. I don't think anybody really did it. So it's weird, but the dude was a hell of a recruiter, and good luck to him. So I can say.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting seeing him at Texas A&M because we know the recruiting capacities at Texas A&M, and he is a fantastic recruiter. If they get that offense figured out, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be interesting to see. But heading back to the transfer portal, guys, Bama has had quite a few names enter the transfer portal, but it's not just Alabama. Let's talk about the biggest surprises to enter the transfer portal thus far. And I got to go with one right now. And I know there's stuff in the background, but I'm talking for your everyday college football fan. The biggest surprises, it's got to be Quinshon Judkins for me. I did not see that coming. You're talking about a franchise caliber running back for Ole Miss entering the transfer portal. Jay, what do you think, man? Who is the most surprising addition to the transfer portal to you?
Judkins. Like that shocked me that he actually decided that he didn't want to he was their best player. And like what benefit is it for him going to Ohio State outside of making money? Is there really a fear of not getting drafted? Because to me, now
no,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna say apparently he had beef with his coach. He had beef with his coaching staff. He wanted to change. He wanted to change something within the offense and his offensive line, and Lane Kiffin suggested him to go to the portal, and he did. That's the thing that's kind of going on right now. Again, not saying that could be true, but that's kind of the rumor that's been going on, was that he just had differences with Lane Kiffin and the offense. Yeah, with the philosophy of the offense, hated it, wanted to change it, didn't do it.
Well, which makes sense. I mean, it's Lane Kiffin, and he's very combative of a person, so I can totally see why somebody would want to do that. But at the same time, I mean, okay, going to Ohio State, yeah, he's going to get drafted, right? He's that talented. It's just weird to me. Just I guess the gall of going in and saying, "I want you to make some changes on your offense," like that. I mean, he was getting you yards, bro. That's all that matters. I mean, Ole Miss. The limits of Ole Miss honestly hinges on the quarterback play, and not to just really, shoot them strays at our guy Jackson Dart, but he ain't a world beater, right? We ain't seen nothing about him that tells us that he's going to defeat you on his own. And Judkins was that player that was helping, do that. And yeah, Texas Homer, that's what gets me. That is just wild that this dude wanted a scheme change, and Lane Kiffin gets running backs going. it feels more so like that quarterback also is another problem. But I digress. He was the one that shocked me the most because it was just like, really? Huh. Okay. I guess everything ain't gonna be as hunky dory down there at Ole Miss, down there at the SIP like we think. I'm just waiting for it to implode because it's Lane Kiffin and that's what happens around him.
Yeah, you have been predicting that for quite some time. Even though people think Ole Miss is going to be a team to watch, you seem unmoved by all of the additions out the portal.
We watched Texas A&M do something just like that in buying just about every player they could possibly get their hands on. But when you got a running back walking in wanting to make a scheme change request, it tells me the type of dudes that you're getting in your team anyway. Like yeah. I don't know, man. I'm just waiting for it to implode. It's going to one day.
My man has zero faith in Lane Kiffin as a head coach. Now, I got to know, Jay, does this stem back for your Tennessee? Yep,
yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I say that for one reason. Not only just the Tennessee stint and the mess that he pulled there, but look at what he did at USC, right? They brought him in. Well, first look at what he did at the Raiders. That whole fiasco. But that was a young Lane. I gave him some grace on that. He was dealing with Al Davis. Yeah. Pure wildness there. Lane was young. He gets the USC job. They hire him really because they wanted him to bring in the cavalry of coaches that was there with Pete Carroll. And it just didn't seem like he took the job seriously to the point that they fired him on the tarmac. Right? That should tell you something, right? He comes there to Alabama because, everybody goes to Nick Saban's school of coaching rehabilitation. And he looks like, all right, we got something here, to the point that questions came up because you got Saban ripping him a third one because of a play call. I'm just like, okay, he done blew up this spot. Leaves, goes down to FAU, which he's a fantastic coach. You can't deny it because he went down to FAU and won like 10 games, right? He's going to win games for you, but it implodes over time. So then he gets that. He leaves there to go to Ole Miss because, of course, you move up. You're not going to stay down at FAU. He only went to FAU just to get away from Saban at the time. And now he's there at the SIP doing what he does best, but at some point it's going to start to implode because it's just his nature. I mean, you watch him tweet all day. It's just who he is. And, I mean, shade, no shade, whatever. That's who he is.
I love the passion in which you deliver that with. Brinsky, I'm going to pass it to you, man. Most surprising addition of the transfer portal?
Easily Junkins, man. It was especially right after the national championship game. I'm like, am I seeing this right? Because when it just popped up, I was like, Ohio State. But I wouldn't even necessarily blame it on the coaching staff. Or when the players seemed like they had a problem with him too. Well, at least Dart. I'll just say Dart. Because it's just like video, like, man, can you get him? Like, making him seem like he was a drama queen and whatnot. So it's something that we don't know. Lane been classy about it, especially on Twitter, like congratulating them, just saying good luck and all that. But who knows, man? But that is definitely the shocker. And I think with Lane philosophy, probably just passing it too much. He felt like may get lost in the shuffle, but I don't know how. He's that guy for real. But
you're saying he watched Ohio State's quarterbacks throw the ball and say, "Oh, they're not throwing it here no more. I can come in here and be."
Yeah, and especially if Henderson coming back, I'm not even sure.
I think so.
If he is, then they just sharing the backfield and use less tread on the tires. Come out as a junior, possibly first round pick, because he's one of those type backs that you can just like a Alvin Kamara type, and you can just put him with somebody, and I think he'll be a great fit for an NFL team. But I don't think he's gonna. I don't know why. If that was the case, I don't think he was gonna get lost in the shuffle. But I love him as a running back, and I think Ohio State got a great running back. I just don't think that quarterback play is it's basically the same thing, to be honest.
Yeah, not a lot of questions there at the quarterback play. In Ohio State, they already have so much talent, but good for the Buckeyes, right? Fantastic addition in that running back room. Jance, I'm going to pass it to you. Most surprising transfer portal addition.
Yeah, I know it's gonna be boring, but it's gotta be Jenkins. Yeah, it's just hearing that story. It's just hearing the story, and and again, I don't know if it's completely true. That's just the rumor that's been floating around, but I'm not surprised by it. I mean, it's been known that Lane Kiffin, he's letting some of his players have some sort of authority at times. He's gotten he's taken some suggestions from players to kind of add some things to the offense. Some of it's been beneficial. Some of it has not been hasn't been beneficial for him. He's not a disciplinarian. He's more of a kind of laid back, friendly, kind of more of a, he's more of a player's coach. He's the Mike McDaniel of college football, right? Mike McDaniel goes around, joke around. You see him on what you call it? What's that show? That Hard Knocks. You see him on Hard Knocks, and he's just fooling around. He's not yelling. I mean, of course, he's doing his own thing. Like he feels like one of the players. That's Lane Kiffin. That's his type of style.
Partying on frat row.
But Mike,
right? Oh yeah, Mike. Yeah, Mike
is a horrible coach. I'm like, oh.
Hey, look, Mike McDaniel got them boys to 11 wins. He's finding a way with the Dolphins somehow, man. But he does act like a frat.
Oh no, like, yeah. my fault. I'm thinking of Mike McDaniels. My fault.
Oh,
my fault.
No, you're good. You're good. No, yeah. I mean, it's not. It's kind of not surprising, kind of hearing about it. But yeah, it does on paper sound crazy that a running back is offering a lot of suggestions. Now, apparently, again, he's had more beef with the offensive line than expected, and then that's when the suggestion really kind of came into play. But it's been probably a lot of stuff we just haven't heard of yet, or maybe that are now starting to come afloat. And yeah, I mean, it's like I kind of can believe it, because why the hell would you leave? I mean, I mean, unless you were really trying to go out there and get a bag, but I mean, Ole Miss is getting. I mean, you got Princely, you got Tyler Barron, you got Walter Nolan. I mean, they're getting players out the bazoo the last couple of years from the portal. It's not like Ole Miss is broke. They got money. They got some dudes there that can provide. So who knows? Who knows about what really went on? But he's at Ohio State now have to run right behind Seth McLaughlin, and we'll see how he does.
He doesn't have to catch snaps, so that's the positive there.
Unless he wants to go a Wildcat like he did Ole Miss.
We're going to leave that one be, because my God. Rapid fire on this last segment, guys, because Jay and I were talking about this in the green room, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to kind of get a 60-second synopsis from all of you about this topic.
Okay.
Gentlemen, Miami continues to recruit so darn well. I mean, we look at the All-American game, and you look at some of the guys that were pegged as the top performers, and there's a lot of Miami in that top performers, but this isn't new. Cristobal has been known to recruit, but guys, it doesn't feel like Miami's getting any better. They continually just find ways to be inept. Jance, I'm going to start with you, man. Is this the year Miami moves in a positive direction? I'm not saying ACC championship. I'm just saying, will they start to look like a team that's building towards something positive?
They have to, because if they don't, then Mario Cristobal is gone. You may not even last the season. I would say the expectations probably 9 wins. Maybe
it's gotta be.
I can't even say 8 wins, because dude, all that probably besides not even Clemson anymore. Miami's been out recruiting Clemson the last couple of years. It's like Miami has a lot of stacked talent. They've been getting dudes from the portal. You saw what their freshman All-Americans were able to do this year. They had 3 dudes, especially on the defensive line, that was able to kind of go out there and be major contributors. Like, the talent is there. I mean, your offensive line took a huge step. Your defensive line took a huge step up. It's a quarterback. They got to find it, right? You got to find a top-tier quarterback, and Cam Ward was supposed to be that guy. Obviously left. They got to try to find a quarterback, but That's on Mario Cristobal. You got to find. I mean, you got to find a way to develop a quarterback. You got to find a way. You got too much talent in the ACC to not even win an ACC championship. Too much talent. Florida State, they're doing everything in their power. They're getting transfers out the kazoo. Clemson. Clemson again. You know them. They're not. I mean, they're not going to go the transfer portal route. They're going to stick to their method of just simply developing. And now you're starting to see they have way more. They're really going back to their old method. You look at the amount of 3-stars that they got for this recruiting class. So Miami's got to find a way, because you look at that rest of the ACC, somehow like these teams that are outlasting Miami. I mean, they're just developing better, and they have nowhere near the talent that Miami has. So the recruit, everyone knows that Mario Cristobal is an incredible recruiter. And when you take a look at his coaching staff, we've seen some guys fired, but notice a lot of those NFL guys, they're still there. And they've been there for I think the last couple of years, last 2 to 3 years, they're still there. Like the Jason Taylors, a lot of NFL guys that are still there. That is a huge part of the recruiting process. So you got to find a way. You got to find a way to get the job done, especially now that we're now going into a 12-team playoff, and that 2 losses can probably get you in. You got to find a way to do it in a weak ACC conference.
No doubt about it. Jay.
So Mario Cristobal took the job, 2022?
Oh, let me get the exact year on that.
Yeah, because him and Dan Lanning basically switched spots, and Lanning's been at Oregon for 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's been there since 22. The 22 class that he salvaged, they finished top 15. Last year's class and this year's class finished top 10, right? So he's putting together some top classes.
Yeah.
He's also got a lot of players leaving in mass exodus, right? People are bouncing like crazy. And I think one of the biggest problems that he's seeing when it comes to the recruiting trail is he's constantly getting players in, and then they're flipping, and then he's flipping somebody else, and then he's flipping somebody else. So it's a lot of constant moving pieces. So you actually really don't know who's where. But as Jans mentioned, the dude can recruit. We've seen it. Now, the question is going to be, can Puffenbarger be his new quarterback and make the magic happen, which that's a tier 1 name in college football right now. I want to hear the announcers scream out Puffenbarger throws it deep. It's so bad. I hope this kid actually makes it and wins the quarterback job. I just want to hear his name. But I digress. Jans is correct. He's got to develop a quarterback, and that's the only way he's going to survive. That was the only reason why Oregon was, halfway decent with him there. But if he didn't get a quarterback that can actually walk and chew gum, he's going to lose his job. And even with all these top classes, he's going to end up losing his job because he couldn't figure it out, the quarterback position. He's getting defensive players. He's got some solid D-lines. He's getting talent there. It seems like he's not getting the talent they truly need. And that one spot really is quarterback. He's got to land a big-time quarterback. I mean, Puffenbarger sounds like Reese sounds like he could have an opportunity, but who else they got at QB? Right, James. That's what I said when I saw his name. I was like, this is kind of interesting of who they went after. And I think USC was actually courting this kid too, which makes it even more hilarious because he came
Albany.
from FCS, if I'm correct, or something like that.
Yeah, Albany.
There you go. Came from Albany. Another Albany All-American, because it seems
Everybody
like
wants to go
Albany is producing all of the literal gems that are flying in the portal, right? You got Anton Junkaj, who's down at A&M now. You had Jared Verse. Now you got Puffenbarger. So anyway, he's got to find a quarterback. And honestly, this year I feel like he's on the hot seat. This is the hot seat year. I don't think he gets fired after the 24 season, but I think he gets fired going into 25, mid-season in 25 if he ain't got a quarterback in place by now.
Very true. Brinsky, I'm going to pass it to you, but before I do, how much does it hurt Mario Cristobal that it actively looks like Tyler Van Dyke regressed under his watch?
Yeah.
Alabama was recruiting, hoping that he come this past season, and to be honest, It looked like he gotten worse under Cristobal. So that tells you a lot. If Nick Saban think highly of you, try to get you out the transfer portal, that's saying a lot about you. But yeah, man, I never been a
We got a
big
hell of a
fan.
lacrosse player out of the portal.
Stop it. And I was not a fan of him either. So I was questioning those moves too by Saban. I was like, man, what is going on? Stop it. Or whatnot. But Jay basically just took all my points. It only lands on one thing. If he does not get a quarterback, dog, that's it. If he can just get a quarterback, he recruited offensive line. He's got receivers. I like Trader. I think he's dope of a receiver. The defense is coming along. All he has to do is just find a quarterback. And I think he can at least, I think Jan was the one that said it, at least 9 wins.
Yeah, chance.
I think that's even pushing it a little bit. But he can't go under 8 wins.
Go ahead, Chance.
No, I was about to say he has to get out of his own way. That's another reason why. Because the reason why I think they won 6 games was because of Mario Cristobal. His game management was terrible. He literally cost them 3 games because of just horrible game management. And one of the biggest criticisms of Oregon. Great elite talent. They won a couple of Rose Bowls, but what's been the biggest criticism has been Justin Herbert was held back from being what he was now with the LA Chargers. So Mario Cristobal, great recruiter. What is he? But what is he as an actual on the field coach? And he's not. That's man. It's not been good so far.
Not been good, especially with 2 games that you could have just kneeled.
Just could have just knelt. Couldn't do it.
But it was great content, though. I can promise you.
I thank him. I thank him because I didn't have to think of something entertaining to say. Anytime there was dead air, I was like, hey, did y'all catch that Miami game when they didn't kneel the ball? And I had a bunch of stuff to talk about. No, you're 100% right.
And then messed up one of the best parlays I've seen all year.
Homer's on fire tonight. He says 16-year-old Madden players clock manage better than half the active head coaches. You're not wrong. Guys, one last thing before we get out of here. Jay, I'm going to start with you. Given that we just talked about one of the Florida schools being on the hot seat in Mario Cristobal, who lasts longer, Billy Napier or Mario Cristobal?
Oh, Cristobal, easily. Like Napier, everything that's going on in Florida is just awful. I mean, let's look at Florida's class. They're 13th this current cycle. Actually, last cycle they were 13th. This current cycle, Florida is 16th. In the recruiting. They got 2 5-stars, which is good, but they saw a lot of people flip. Look, man, Lagway may help save Napier's job, him single-handedly, because that's the one thing that Napier has that we don't see there at Miami is a quarterback that looks like they could be generational or transcendent talent, right? We saw what the problem, though, is that for Napier is, Anthony Richardson getting drafted as high as he did. Not sure how he was not leveraged properly at the collegiate level. Was that under Napier? I'm trying to think. Was that under his watch? That was under his watch. I'm trying to make sure that was still under his watch. So I don't want to slander him too much, but that is something I do want. I do like that, James. He's Scott Frost who can recruit. Send him back to Sunbelt is basically what everybody's trying to say. DJ Lagway is his saving grace. That will be the determining factor. He's most likely going to play as a freshman, and Lagway is going to be the reason why that man keeps his job. Is going to be do or die there. I think Cristobal gets a little bit more grace for some weird reason because Miami's money people were messing around with making some funny money happen. Florida's was worse, of course, with the Rashada situation. So I think Napier gets a little bit more grace from them because of that. But Napier, man, you got Lagway, dog. You better figure that out. Gatorade National Player of the Year. You better figure it out.
Brinsky, who lasts longer, Billy Napier or Mario Cristobal?
Mario. because Mario has a better team around him, and a lot of his guys are still there. Billy Napier, he has no chance, man. That schedule is just too hard, man. And DJ, if he can somehow make it past this season, it's by the grace of God. That's the only man that can help him right now because I just don't see him just making it out of Florida. Matter of fact, he would not make it to the end of the season as Florida's head coach. I just do not see it. I see him losing at least 7 games, unfortunately. It's not enough talent there. I think he needs another year, but I don't think Florida's going to give him another year. So you can always come back to Alabama and be with a coaching analyst, but he's not going to make it out of there.
Purple says, I forgot about Florida's schedule. He's a dead man walking. It is a tough one. I'm just glad we don't have High Top in here. We'd be hurting his soul right now, and he doesn't deserve that. He's a good guy. Jance, close us out, man. Who lasts longer, Billy Napier or Mario Cristobal?
You know what? I'm gonna go with Billy Napier. I'm gonna go with Billy Napier. I think this Florida schedule, he has a chance, right? The first 7 games isn't that bad, right? The toughest one is going to be probably A&M. Besides that, you got Mississippi State, you got Samford, you got Miami, which ironically, that's going to be an interesting game, right? That's going to be, I think that's a week. No, that's week 1. I don't think that's a week 0 game, but that's a week 1 game. And if Florida wins that game against Miami, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Miami because Miami, with Mario Cristobal, with the amount of talent that he has, and you're going against the Billy Napier Florida squadron that's been torn up to shreds of their roster, pressure. Especially because I think if they lose that game, I think it's going to be because of game management, because of Mario Cristobal. He's literally cost them 3 or 4 games this year because of game management. So that Florida-Miami game is probably going to tell the tale about who is going to get fired first. Because, the first 7 games for them, not that tough until you get to the second half. Yeah, then it's brutal, right? Then you get Georgia, then you're on the road at Texas, then you play LSU, and then you play Ole Miss, and then you close out the season by playing Florida State. That's a brutal 5-game stretch for anybody. But those first 7 games is not that bad. But I just think, he's just under more duress. Cristobal, more duress, better talent for sure on both sides of the ball in the trenches. Better secondary, better skill position players. And if you can't go out there, and if you struggle in the first half of the season, there's no reason for you to become the Miami head coach.
See, this is where it gets interesting, guys. I think there are really great principled arguments for both, but ultimately, I have to keep asking myself this question. Are expectations higher for Cristobal because he's ran a big program before? He's ran Oregon. And Miami's not performing at even the level Oregon was. And as everybody on this panel and Texas Homer in the chat pointed out, that Oregon offense was kind of suspect. I mean, didn't Justin Herbert work 33% of his passes behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage? And that was like one of the big questions with him is like, they knew he was really talented, but you just hadn't seen him run an offense that was comparable to an NFL offense. It was one of the biggest questions of his draft. I mean, this is an interesting discussion, guys, one we will have to continue very soon. I think I might have to go with Mario Cristobal getting the boot first, just because I think there might be higher expectations for him. I know, Brinsky. Here's the only thing. Jay made a great point about DJ Lagway, right? That I think is a big saving grace for Billy Napier. And 2, Billy Napier started his quote-unquote rebuild a year later than he should have. And I wonder whether or not that buys him a little extra grace, because he can always say, oh, well, I came here, tried to go off of what Mullen left me. Then after that first year, I had to strip the team and go my own way. And so I was a year behind the curve of where y'all thought the curve was. That's my only question with him, plus the increased expectations at Miami and the fact that they've been terrible. They've just been bad. And I hate to say that, right? But like they have. I was really rooting for them. They just haven't been very good. This is a fantastic conversation. If Steven was here, we know he would be beating this table screaming Billy Napier, because My man
Mhm.
has been leading that charge over at Fanatics Perspective. Guys,
But
we've ran. Go ahead.
one quick question. I would just say this: would 9 wins save his job? Because when you look at this Miami schedule, this is one of the weakest schedules I've ever seen a Power 5 team have. So I'll quickly read this off. He has Florida first game, Florida A&M, Ball State, South Florida, Cal, Georgia Tech, on the road at Louisville, a depleted Louisville team, Duke Blue Devils, a depleted Duke Blue Devils team. Of course, first tough game of the season, Florida State, a depleted Virginia Tech team, a depleted Wake Forest, and then you have a depleted Syracuse with Kyle McCord. Like, if you can't win the ACC this year, I don't care. I don't care if he gets 9 wins. I don't know if that buys him enough time. That's one of the weakest Power 5 schedules I have ever seen. And if you can't win the ACC with that talent, or at least go to a championship game at least. Like, that is one of the weakest Power 5 schedules I've ever seen this year. That's insane. And if you can't win more than 8 games or 9 games, oh no, he might not last the season. If he struggles in the first half against with that's insane.
We have the two different worlds here, where one coach has a bit of a gauntlet and the other coach has it walking down easy street. And I think it creates principled arguments for both sides, right? If one of them struggles, he gets to say, well, heck, man, I had to play all these great teams. If the other guy doesn't win 10 games, you were handed 9 or 10 wins. That's going to be a fun conversation to continue in the offseason. Guys, it's been a fun evening, but it is that time where we go around the table and let everybody know where they can find all your great stuff. As always, I'm going to keep you on your toes. We flipped the order last week. We're going to do the same thing this week. We're going to go Jance, Brinsky, and then Jay.
Oh, sir, I'm ready for this time. So, yeah, Jance716, Twitter, YouTube, Jance Sports. Also can catch me on Bama Insider sometimes with Kyle Henderson, Coach Mook. Of course, we got Coach Ty Hayes, and then of course, we also got Coach Sean. So yeah, shout out to those guys.
Well, I'm Brinsky Sharp of the Sharpshooters Podcast. We drop it every Wednesday. This week we're gonna drop Thursday because supposed to be joining a lot of shows tonight, just showing love, especially to you guys. Ty, you're doing awesome. Jay, you love the shirt, by the way, brother. Love the shirt.
And
Jans, man,
in the hood, baby.
Any chance I get to watch you on Bama Inside, I love it, man. I just love you on there, man. I just love to support you on there.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I know what it is. Jay, Unfair Sports. Follow me on the X-Bird at Unfair Sports. Find me on YouTube as well as whatever podcasts are downloaded and listen to. Just search Unfair Sports. Appreciate you as usual, Ty. My toothbrush is still in the bathroom. He has not thrown me out yet, so that's why I'm here.
No, still there. We're good to go. And we will catch you next week. As far as content for the rest of the week, I'm probably going to be going a little bit easier for the rest of the week, catching up on some things. I had to go visit family in Virginia, and that's kind of put me behind the 8 ball and some other things. But barring massive news, you'll just catch me on the SEC Connect tomorrow. Any live shows with other people, you'll find me there. But we're only going to be doing big news videos. And then next week, we pick up with the regular schedule, live streams, group live streams, videos, you name it. We're there. So enjoy your few days of the off season. And then we get right back into the off season content. And it's going to be a lot of fun. But now it's time to introduce the 5th member of the panel tonight, the spinning wheel of doom, ladies and gentlemen. And it spins.